So welcome everyone to another community call where we have a bunch of topics I see in the Discord channel. But the first thing that I wanted to talk about today is thinking about the UX of a bounty for Metastudies feature. There's kind of like two approaches that we're kind of thinking of building this feature through. And I just wanted to throw them all out there and see like what resonates the best with you all. So like there's kind of the approach that we have now with the meta studies feature where someone can propose a topic and anyone can share sources. So like pretty much like no definition, no like previous assigned responsibilities. Anyone can like approach a like prompt for a meta study, add a paper that they think is relevant, and then add like context to why they chose to like post that paper within the meta study. We can try and scale this up. So for the use case of Brian's, like, what is the relationship between artificial sweeteners and health? It would basically be a question where anyone could add a source that they believed was relevant to that hypothesis. And then we'd figure out some kind of incentive structure to reward individuals based on like how relevant the source is to the question. It'll be a little tricky to get that right, but that's sort of like the first way that we can approach things through like a crowdsourced, like individual contributions towards this like bigger meta study that has a bounty on it. The second way we're thinking of it is a little bit more like a traditional narrative review that would be published within like an academic journal, where if Brian posts that question saying, what's the relationship between artificial sweeteners and like health span, an editor could claim that question. And then that editor would be responsible for putting together like a team of people to draft a narrative review. So that editor would essentially either write it themselves or reach out to others that they believe had expertise within that like questions domain, and pretty much like coordinate like, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 people to create a like narrative review. And then the editor would be responsible for essentially like delegating out the bounty. So maybe one person does 50% of the work. The editor could say, hey, you get 50% of the bounty. The next person does 10%. It's the editor's responsibility to essentially organize that response. So those are like the two approaches. One is like individuals can share papers kind of on their own free time towards this more like crowdsourced collection of papers trying to respond to the initial question, or we can have an editor claim it and then recruit essentially like people who would be in a position and have the proper training to like create a narrative review in like a collaboratory environment. Yeah, so I guess like any thoughts that spurs up, or maybe there's a third approach that we're not thinking of. Just wanted to like hear what everybody thinks.
So if we're doing pros and cons, I would say the first approach, a pro is definitely that is there's much more freedom. So, you know, anyone can come in and leave a comment if they want to add a source. And the con is probably that the bounty could basically be just, you know, left unanswered. So not a lot of attention. The second one is the pro is that basically the opposite of the first one. So there's a curator now. So it is the editor responsibility to have that bounty answered. So in that way, you have, you know, someone that will take care of that. A con is that in that case is that, you know, it's probably, you know, more probably need more people. Maybe some bounties should be targeted to the specific audience that we have now, so that we make sure that they are answered for basically the same reason. But this time is just finding the right people for answering the question.
I think it's possible too. We've had like a lot of success just trying to recruit editors. So if there was like a large bounty where the question was sort of out of the expertise of anyone in our current community, we could go recruit an editor like for that specific field. So like maybe like we have some crazy quantum physics question and none of our current editors are like totally in that realm. I think it'd be reasonable for us within a week to find, like a PhD student in quantum physics who would have the expertise to then like find experts to help to answer that question.
Okay, so if that's the case, I'm probably leaning more toward the second one, I think.
Does anybody else have thoughts here?
I think for the second one, I feel like there'll, I don't know, it's hard when you have like a large scale task like that. I think we might have to bake in ways where the person who posted the bounty can keep like a good cadence on the pace that's being had on the task. So like, I don't know if we mandate them to like create all of this in the notebook, and then the person who posted the bounty is one of the people that the notebook is shared with, so they can see the pace of all the updates. Because one thing I could think of is, someone scrapes together something last minute and they claim, hey, this is my review, and it's really terrible, and it doesn't go through peer review. So like the peer reviewers can't say, hey, this is really terrible. So at least there's like a proper update every so often, where the person who provided the task or the bounty can see.
Yeah, that's exactly how we were thinking about it, Jeff. Like maybe like the person who creates the bounty can have some kind of visibility into a notebook where all this collaboration is happening.
Okay, perfect.
I guess, does anyone else have a preference between those two approaches?
The first one is more in line with the original vision of ResearchHub, right, as a Reddit-style platform where people crowdsource stuff. The second one might be tough to implement, in my opinion, right? Finding an editor each time we are lacking the expertise is a very manual and rough solution, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think like more pros and cons. When it comes to the crowdsourced version, it would be easier to build because you don't have to have like interactions between editors and like people they may not know like in real life, and like delegating tokens and like how does that all get administered is not like a trivial challenge. The one thing I do like about the editor-led version is it's a much nicer email to say, hey, like, do you want to help write this review paper? You'll earn a little cash and you'll have a publication coming out of it. That's like a pretty good cold email to try and bring in like scientists to ResearchHub. So there's a decent like top of the funnel, like bringing new people into the community that comes along with like an editor-led kind of review paper. But you're totally right, where like that would be nice for the early stages of ResearchHub, but probably wouldn't scale compared to like a Wikipedia style. Anyone can contribute anything. Nathan?
I was thinking, is there an option for a hybrid kind of approach? So you allow, let's say 2 tiers of a bounty. So there's a bounty for crowdsourced contributions, and then there's also always the option for the editor or an experienced individual to come in and try and claim ownership of a wider sort of narrative review type contribution, maybe leveraging some of the existing community contributions, or going out and taking responsibility to crowdsource it themselves, either on the platform or outside of the platform. I see, then maybe that has the benefits of both without maybe the cons, because I don't see much lost by offering both on the platform. I don't think it muddies the waters too much.
Yeah, and it could end up being that long term for sure, because even like scientific questions, they can very much range from like, give me a high level overview that, like a second year PhD student could answer versus like, tell me exactly what's happening in this like cutting edge, like new technology, where you probably need like some kind of expertise that's like recruited for that specific purpose. So yeah, I think a combined like approach is probably the best like long-term solution. Did you have a preference between the two, Nathan? Like, where should we get started in your mind?
It's very hard. Yeah, it's very hard to pick from them, because I think the crowdsource element really is the key feature of ResearchHub that makes it different from just a traditional narrative review that anyone could write and then submit to a journal of their choice. But then I also really like this idea of actually having an expert. Obviously, you will get a lot of variation in quality of crowdsourced contributions. So having that expert really leading that team and saying, okay, even if I'm not an expert, I'll go and find someone, bring them on, take some of these contributions here, collate them, or get a group together, and then we'll do some research for this and then contribute it. I think that's the best approach.
Yeah, thank you. I guess like another question following up here is like, in my mind, an added benefit of the editor-led approach is the end result could be a publication, that's maybe indexed by Google Scholar, where there's like a defined author list. So like in theory, someone could not just earn some tokens, but maybe like they'll throw another publication on their CV. Do you think there's a way to do that with the crowdsourced approach? Like, could we tie in that like real life academic incentive of like a publication that comes out of it that you can throw on your CV? We're trying to think in terms of like what actually motivates, scientists to write reviews now. I think would be interesting.
Yeah, I'll quickly respond to that. I think there's definitely a scope for that. So for instance, in the COVID days, one of the trials that came out in the UK from NDPH was one called Recovery. And the collaboration was almost, thousands of individuals all across the country. So their approach was, okay, no individual is going to claim first authorship for this. We're just going to put every publication that comes out of this platform under Recovery Trial Collaborative. And then they had all the names. And some people offer a dual approach where they've got the name of a few people who led it, and then it's ended by the collaborative. And then at the bottom of the footnotes, it's got every single name and every single institution that contributed. So actually you could have the lead person as the first author so that there's a point of contact. And then you could have the collaborative so that everyone who contributed to it is named. And actually on ResearchHub, we could do even more by actually saying that exactly what people contributed and maybe give a token value to their contribution so that everyone can just see, okay, this person contributed this amount of tokens worth, this person contributed this amount, and just have all the names on there.
That's interesting. You almost brought up like a third in between way where maybe there's an editor who leads the like crowdsourced version and acts as like the owner of a GitHub repo, and maybe each like added citation is kind of like a pull request that then the editor would need to approve or deny in order to like be admitted into the review. Interesting. Cool. Does anybody have other thoughts on how we could potentially structure this feature? Malik, I saw you had your hand up earlier.
Yeah, I was just going to add something that what like Nathan pointed out, like even in the first approach, I think the editor will have to step in to see what the comments are, because as of now, even in discussions, sometimes people are putting like very generic comments, quote unquote comments that don't add much to the discussion. And I believe adding a bounty would make people more likely to, okay, I want to respond to this just for the purpose of bounty. And for some sort of quality control, an editor will have to step in. So I think the hybrid approach, like what Nathan was describing, would work the best. Just that's what I think. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That is an interesting way to go about it. I'll definitely pitch it to Kobe next time I chat with him. Cool. Any other last thoughts here on potential like meta-study bounties?
Yeah, just building on the previous point, I really liked what Ricardo was saying last week about this idea of creating like a shared database as a contribution as well. And there's no reason why that couldn't be a valid response to a bounty, where someone takes ownership of like a crowdsourced IPD meta-analysis and says, okay, like we're going to build a team and we're going to go out and create a database of resources, rank them by, utility, etc., and then keep updating that.
Totally. I mean, that would be very cool if we're able to like help people combine data in a more effective way. We were even thinking like this probably outside of the scope, but like helping people extract data from papers in like a more seamless way would be like pretty cool. But that's probably way in the future.
Have you guys, just a quick point, have you guys seen this? I'm sorry, I don't know the name of it, but I'll have a look at it immediately after. But online, a group of astrophysicists have crowdsourced entering data for whether the shape of galaxies. So you can just go on there and any user will be able to say, okay, is this a spiral galaxy? Is it like a spherical galaxy or whatever? And then what's happening is you're contributing to this, hundreds of thousands, millions data set that can then be analyzed. It would be cool to have something like that where, it's just a really basic idea and everyone on ResearchHub is just contributing to, what is the shape of this cell? Or, does this cell have features that look cancerous or something like that? Because that actually is a very useful data set that can be used and actually there's monetary value in that for certain like AI companies, etc.
Yeah, totally. So they're doing like labeling training data for an AI. Is that kind of what's happening?
Basically, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that is pretty cool. Awesome. Yeah, so saw we had a bunch of topics here in the community call list. I guess, Tyler, do you know which one we should chat about first?
Sorry, I jumped in a little late here. My audio working?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think I saw there was Jeff put a comment in here about a concerted effort on Ioana's comment about smart contracts. I was just curious if anybody wanted to elaborate about that first. It was mainly talking about how we could use smart contracts more in ResearchHub, just kind of brainstorming about that. And then if that's not a hot topic, also Jeff put that we could brainstorm about ideas about what to use the Gitcoin funding for.
Yeah, totally. So with smart contracts, I know like the way that we're building out ResearchHub so far, like pre-product market fit, we're trying to stay away from as much like on-chain kind of computation as possible, just because it's like more time intensive to build. So we use smart contracts basically just for like token stuff right now. Like we have a hot wallet to help distribute RSC, like multi-sigs. We'd definitely be open to anything, but like I think like actual like user data, we're gonna hold off until we have product market fit. But yeah, always open to like thinking about potential ways to do it.
Well, I think what Jeff and I were talking about last night, he was talking about a partnership with I think it's IRJC. And the question was if we're paying them in ResearchCoin. I mean, we don't have to write a smart contract to do this, but this is an idea that we had. If we're paying them in ResearchCoin, we certainly don't want them to be able to dump it for how much we're going to be able to pay them. So if we're doing lockups, do we want to do it by time? Do we want to do it by other metrics? And it might make the most sense to use a smart contract where we can set the parameters for that kind of payment. So I think that was one of the main things we were talking about. And then we're just saying, more broadly, it might make sense to have developers who can help do this sort of thing on the community side.
I see. So that makes a lot of sense. So not necessarily like features on researchhub.com, but just like almost administrative type of smart contracts for like our interactions as a community. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. A lot of these contracts too, I know, are like on Open Zeppelin, so they're pretty easy to like at least have like a base that you can tweak for like a specific use case. I know we have a couple of like open source engineers in the community that are like interested in Solidity. I don't know if they've shipped a ton of smart contracts, but I think we like those types of vesting things I think are fairly common. And there may even be like on-chain tools like that already exist that like, just deploy smart contracts for you where you don't even have to write something custom. But yeah, we could look into that.
Yeah, and just to add to that too, there are a couple of interested open source devs who I've been communicating with, and they've expressed interest in this exact kind of thing. So if that becomes, I guess, more like concisely bountied, maybe I can reach out to them and see how it goes.
Tyler, there's one bounty that's out there already about just like a non-custodial wallet integration. I think that's like probably the best starting point. I'm not sure. I think it's for the ResearchHub platform, but we're also going to want to use that for the ResearchHub community because we're going to have like Uniswap widgets and like Olympus Pro like bonding stuff on the community website. So I think that'd be like a really great place to start for them.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I'll drum up some conversation in there just to bring that back up. Thanks for reminding me.
Hey, Kobe.
Hey, everyone. Sorry, I was driving, but I was listening to the conversation. I had a question. Well, I had a little bit of feedback. Sorry, my dogs are barking. Can ignore them. But in regards to the what Jeff you just mentioned about integrating with something, another sign-in mechanism like sign-in with Ethereum, as far as like Bounty is concerned, I think that's what you're referring to, right? Sign-in with Ethereum, Jeff.
Yeah, but just not necessarily for bounties, but
Right.
in general, yeah.
Just in general, yeah. So we had, I just wanted to make like a couple of points. So we had like one open source dev that was going to do, well, he started to do a little bit of work, but that kind of fell through. However, I just wanted to make everyone aware that we did a lot of work making sure that it's now very easy to locally spin up the ResearchHub code base. Prior to this, like as of like a week and a half ago, it was very difficult and laborious operation, but now you can do it in like maybe 15 minutes. So I think it's worth, like, if you guys like have a little bit of like some reach out from some open source devs, again, I think it can be a good opportunity to to sync up with them again. Yeah, that's all I wanted to mention.
Thanks, Kobe. Joanna?
Yeah, I wanted to say that smart contracts can be used in cloud computing without necessarily the intervention of cryptocurrencies and signatory parties. So this could open some services and projects for enterprises or even universities that want to collaborate. So maybe we can analyze this for the future.
Yeah, I think down the road there'll be a lot of like cool uses where we can bake in some like trustless, interactions. But yeah, I think we've probably got to find product market fit first and keep like trying new features till we get there.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so maybe we should chat about the Gitcoin grant stuff.
Sure, I could hop in if you want, Patrick. So as you guys know, we concluded the Gitcoin grant GR15 round, which was, I think, finished last week sometime, and we're waiting to hear. So what will happen is the match, we get whatever is donated to us directly. The matching fund, which is like the lion's share of the money, actually the Gitcoin team has to like process everybody's like matching funds and make sure everything is like good, and they're probably gonna take away from some if some people like did something that wasn't kosher, and then redistribute those to the other projects that did everything fair. But plus or minus, we'll probably get around $8 or $9 grand from that, and that's going to come in the form. The matching funds come in the form of I think DAI or USDC, some stable coin. So I guess the question would be just to brainstorm some ideas on where we'd like to shun, and there'll be a formal governance proposal that goes out for it, but where we'd like to put that money towards, whether that be prizes for the competitions we'll be hosting, money for AMAs or journal club speakers or things like that. So what do you guys think?
Just to throw one out there, I do like the idea of paying for the AMAs and the journal clubs. I think that can give some great publicity and make it a lot easier for people to kind of onboard and do these early on.
Wait, when you say paying for the AMA journal club, what do you mean?
Like a speaker. So if a speaker comes in and they're like kind of a high profile speaker, maybe like from a very prominent cell paper or something like that, or we can give them like $100 for their time that they spend doing like a hour AMA with us, something like that. I think Malik, you had your hand up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the other ideas that I think Lynn had done a survey of by email earlier was like to invite like universities and then provide them a certain number of RSC with this grant where they can give it to the students whoever want to create bounty for questions for their research that they need and stuff, like so like if like the university librarian is aware about like ResearchHub, then somebody's trying to find some information, and I mean, at least when I was in the university, I used to go get help from librarian about some information I need, and they can help create bounties and use that money and spread the word.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good place for like actual RSC. We got a bunch of actual like stablecoin USD from the Gitcoin grant, but I think from an RSC perspective, that'd be great. And I think something we've talked about before is like having exclusive on-chain or off-chain RSC where people can't withdraw that, but they have to use it in the platform. And I think that would be perfect, Malik, for that use. Okay, Cole and then Edwin.
What about using some of that money for just digital advertising and increasing our breadth across the internet to try and generate more people coming in?
100%. I think that's great. We can put like promotions and stuff like that. The one thing about it is we can't pay, so the money will be in the community multi-sig wallet. And we won't have like an off-chain like bank account part of like the ResearchHub community entity, at least as of now, where we would be able to pay for, I'm sure, like Facebook ads and like different things like that. So it would just require maybe some like details on having an actual formal entity and then making an off-chain like account where we could actually pay for those things.
Can't you use cryptocurrencies to pay for stuff on Twitter?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know if anyone knows.
And Reddit started some sort of advertising program as well.
Okay, where you can pay with crypto?
I don't know if you can pay with crypto for Reddit advertising, but they do have their own NFT they have their own NFT avatars. So I assume that there's a bridge, if not already, coming soon.
I saw that Stripe is integrating USDC into their like normal payment options. So I think it'll only be a matter of time before you can use USDC kind of within like the major apps. I wonder though if like maybe we can like be more bespoke than necessarily like using Facebook ads or Twitter ads or something like that. Like I was looking up last week, there are like professional development consultants for PhDs that like help them, like find careers in industry or like help prepare them, to like maximize their like resumes to try and become a professor. Like I think it'd be possible to plug into like some of these like websites that help like give career advice for PhD students and do like advertising deals with them. You know what I mean? Trying to find like very like they always say like where's your target audience and where do they spend the most time where they're paying attention? And so people trying to find jobs, I think, is a nice like cross section of that. But yeah, I think we could find bespoke advertising agreements even with like influencer type people where they'd accept USDC instead of necessarily using like Facebook ads or something like that.
Yeah, that might be best. What do you think about our science? Do you think that's not bespoke enough?
So I can post stuff to our science like fairly easily and get like a bunch of clicks, but it doesn't necessarily convert to like active users. So I'm not sure. Yeah, I think like clicks from stuff like Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, there's fraud, but there's like a lot of bots and there's a lot of like, people who just randomly click everywhere who get in like counted within that. So yeah, I've had not amazing experiences doing like very small scale, like online advertising and Facebook and stuff like that. When I think like bespoke engagements, incentives are slightly more aligned.
Yeah, so we're talking about YouTube influencers, but didn't have the money to do it earlier. This might be if we're going to go more bespoke, this might be a good way to approach that.
Yeah, I think so. Especially, obviously we'll have to go through a governance proposal and make sure, the whole community is okay with it. I think another workaround too is if somebody might not be super familiar, like a science influencer even, what we could do is also have like kind of a representative that would be like the point of contact with them, and they can do things off chain with them. So like should they need to have some money like sent to a bank account and then we can have the community treasury reimburse that user with USDC, for example. Yeah, Nathan?
Yeah, I was just thinking, like traditionally the thinking around like startup marketing is that you try and find product market fit first and then you fuel it with marketing dollars. And I know from like some previous discussions that might be, Patrick, how ResearchHub Inc. is thinking about this. So if you look at it from, if you take that approach and apply it to ResearchHub community, our sort of product essentially is ResearchCoin, right? And so maybe dollars would be best spent in terms of trying to inform how ResearchCoin can find its product market fit. So for instance, at the moment, we've got the bounty feature. So how can we make like money go as far as possible in order to inform, you know, getting that fit right between how ResearchCoin is interacting with the bounty feature and how all ResearchCoin holders are being sort of compensated for that. So I was thinking, okay, we've got a small amount of money, but PhD students and research students are usually pretty cash strapped and so are willing to actually put a lot of time in for smaller amounts of money. So maybe something to do with like a prize related to how PhD students could contribute, you know, some content creation around how bounty features could be implemented in different ways, you know, looking at bounty features, bounties that are already on the site and contributing to them, something where we're linking a prize, content creation, and the bounty feature so that it's helping all our interests. And then that way, when you put it up as a community proposal, I think it will go down quite well because for RSC holders, that's probably the best bang for their buck.
Wait, I'm sorry. I don't understand how that's the best. Can you explain again? I don't understand how that's the best bang for the buck for RSC holders. Maybe I just missed something.
Sure. So I guess my point is that for the RSC community for which the grant is supported, the idea is that you want RSC to have more value than it does at the moment, right? That's why you would put it up to the community to vote how you spend it. And then obviously in the spirit of the actual Gitcoin grant, you want it to be, you know, something that benefits wider society as a whole. So perhaps something that merges those two interests, like a prize for current research PhDs and things where they can create content around the bounty feature or current bounties on the site, so that they're helping us get product market fit for RSC and bounties, while also, you know, getting value out of that money for wider society in the sense that PhD students are creating meaningful content around, you know, open science, etc.
Okay.
It's actually twofold as well, Nathan. I actually quite like the idea because like you can think of ResearchHub as almost like an automated market maker where they don't really care if like there's things that happen and don't happen. They want to have just a lot of like bounty movement because, you know, we collect fees on those. And so that actually directly helps the ResearchHub community because the community earns a percentage of those fees as well. So really a market maker just cares about all the trading that goes on. So we just want activity around the bounty feature as well, which is a kind of second layer of benefit that comes out of that. Yeah, Nathan.
Yeah, sorry, that's actually a great thought. I never thought of it like that. And what's funny is like automated market makers are obviously in the business of providing liquidity. So we're sort of in the business of providing research liquidity, i.e. like a buyer needs research.
Jeff, that's only true. That's only true.
Yeah, sorry, Edwin.
I'm sorry, I don't want to. Jeff, that's only true if like US dollars are coming into the ecosystem though. But even if you're removing RSC from, you know, circulation, if most of the RSC is being cashed out, then it actually the reduction in RSC volume doesn't actually affect the RSC value. So
yeah, thinking about it less as reduction in volume or reduction in supply, and more like it funnels back into the actual treasuries of, you know, the community and Inc. As well. So, but yeah, it's almost like I think of ResearchHub almost as knowledge as a service type of thing, where you're just trying to kind of facilitate exchange of knowledge between a buyer and a seller. Yeah, but yeah, cool.
Do you think then that using some of the funds to perhaps match bounties from the, or like there's a community match, so that way there's more incentive for people to do them, because right now ResearchCoin is not worth very much, and a lot of bounties are not like financial. It's not a, I wouldn't spend time doing it for that amount of money. So that would incentivize people to create bounties for one and then fill them out.
Yeah, 100%. I think one logistical way to do that, I think it'd be hard to do it on the website, but maybe we can do it through DWork, where somebody kind of can post up and say, hey, I want to do this. And they can throw in a suggestion onto DWork and say, would the community be willing to provide $50 extra for me to complete this task? And we can pay that out through DWork. Yeah, because on the platform, we'd have to integrate like a stablecoin means of exchanging.
So just to throw it out there as like another idea that we could possibly do. I was looking through like a journal, like an open access journal the other day, and they put together presentations for universities on like, here's information on open access publishing, like what you need to know, like here's archive, here's bioarchive, and then they'll like plug their project at the very end. So almost like we have a bunch of, you know, like intelligent people in like some of the biggest cities in the world. And so we could like pay for our community members to go to universities to give presentations on like Web3 and open access publishing, you know, maybe pay for some pizzas, like make some, like build some relationships like in person. Like I think that could actually be pretty effective and high ROI for the dollar spent.
Such a nice personal touch to that too, where you see somebody in person. Like I think like online conferences and stuff are an easy one that probably really cheap, where you can just demo the product. But yeah, I mean, we have people around the world. Would be easy to just take a 20-minute train somewhere and get to a conference. I like that a lot.
I still wonder though, like, who wants to buy ResearchCoin? Right. I mean, we're talking about bringing people on who want to contribute to the community, who want to contribute their knowledge, etc. And those are all good things. But what we don't have are people who want to actually buy ResearchCoin. And we need that to be we need a sustainable source of that if it's ever going to be worth anything. And maybe the answer is you need an entire ecosystem before it becomes particularly attractive to any given parties. But I haven't thought through that, and I don't know if we've all thought through that. I think we need to think through that, because that's really the only way where, you know, if we're talking about matching funding to make like bounties more valuable or more attractive, etc., that's sort of dancing around the issue, where like really the way to do it is to get people buying ResearchCoin, and preferably not just speculating on it, but because they want to use it. So yeah.
So I think the bounties use case actually helps to supply a lot of the demand for ResearchCoin. Even now, just seeing some of the posts that exist, like they're pretty technical, and so you can get like a smart person to give like an hour of their time, you know, with a solid ResearchCoin bounty, and that's like worth a lot of money. And so I think there is a world where like scientists will want to buy ResearchCoin in order to direct attention of other scientists to help them solve their own problems. And then even with this Metastudies bounty feature that we're currently building, like the use case is for someone like Brian, you know, who has like a question about the world, and they need to like direct the attention of experts, like Jeff said, like knowledge as a service, essentially. And so like in theory, through that use case, like there are like, you know, wealthy people who have USD who want to convert it to RSC in order to help to direct the attention of these scientists. So I think like the bounties feature in general, like we're really getting a lot closer to like a compelling argument to like why someone would want to actually like convert their USD into RSC in order to like leverage what we have going on within ResearchHub.
Are we thinking these are primarily going to be wealthy people?
I think PhD students for the bounties, like for the questions. I think like scientists, it actually, it's nice because like with the Brian use case, like there's sort of a one direction like flow of value where Brian buys, you know, USD to RSC, transfers it to Nathan to answer a question, then Nathan converts RSC to USD again. But like with the scientist to scientist interaction, you know, like Jeff asks a question of Nathan, pays RSC. Now Nathan has RSC, maybe he needs to ask a question of Cole, you know, and so there's, you know, a more circular economy, like among scientists actually, like, you know, giving their time for RSC and then using that RSC to get another scientist time.
Yeah. So I just think we should focus, like, well, either on Brian or scientists in some way. Specific, yeah. Put this.
Yeah, definitely.
It could feel very commercial if we insist a lot on RSC and not on science. I mean, the focus should be science, and slowly, yeah, because right now there is a lot of confusion about things on chain and digital stuff, and until universities or more formal institutions are starting to adopt like how the way they want to transact, I think we should focus on science.
Yeah, but I don't think there's a dichotomy here, right? So I'm saying like reaching out to scientists at universities or, you know, wealthy people or whatever. I'm just saying like that like ResearchCoin is the product. We need to find buyers essentially. Like that's how I'd like to think about it.
Yeah, I think there's a place too, Edwin, for like a freemium feature too. Again, a lot of it requires like a user base that's like, you know, substantial enough where, you know, people care to pay for a freemium feature where they can follow a user, because we have a really cool set of users on here. Someone can follow Andrew Huberman. If he was on ResearchHub, they could see all the posts and they can see all the updates that are coming out of his lab or something like that. So I think it's like this weird chicken and egg problem too, where it's like you need a lot of users to make it a compelling website for people to buy the ResearchCoin to want to be on it, but you also need to have ResearchCoin have value for users to come in. So it's definitely there's a chicken egg problem. Yeah, actually, Patrick, I don't know how many more topics we have. I don't know if we should move on to something else or.
Yeah, if you'd like to move on, that sounds good to me.
Okay.
Yeah. One before.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, you know, while we're on this topic of getting like ResearchCoin some value, even in its present form, right, you know, like we have some value where we can like swap it for, you know, Ethereum or something like, and I don't know if our website like even like in some way or form mentions that for new users. Like we have a page where it says everything about ResearchCoin and what it is, but I think we should at least, just to give it the value, even in just as it is right now, we should have the public be informed that, hey, you can, if you absolutely want, after answering this bounty, you can always swap out some of this to something, because there is some liquidity already. I mean, we ideally don't want them to keep doing that, but like, I think just knowing that would give somebody a peace of mind that, hey, my work is not just worth nothing even today.
We're planning to put that on the community website. So there will be a section basically where we'll be able to highlight Uniswap and the new bond that we'll be creating. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Malik, there's some weird regulations in the US where we're not allowed to necessarily like explicitly say that like on researchhub.com. So yeah, it's kind of like just being conservative.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no worries. It's a weird, unintuitive thing. So, Nathan.
Yeah, I just want a quick point as well. Is like it is technically backed by hours worked as well, because for instance, ResearchHub Inc. employs programmers to work on the bounties feature, and that's a real salary that's backing a product that is a sink for ResearchCoin. So in many ways, that is the real value of ResearchCoin. It's never going to be massively transactable in the state of bounties as they are at the moment. So you're better off investing it in a future product that will have much higher volumes of, you know, ResearchCoin fees every time someone posts a bounty. So it's always worth remembering that it doesn't necessarily need to be USD dollar backed all the time.
Backed by scientist time is a nice little marketing phrase. I like that a lot. I guess, Jeff, what do you want to move on to next?
That was it, I think, for that topic. I suppose if we want to had a second topic, unless anyone has anything else, but it's going to be in regards to like partnerships with journals. And so the content or the context behind this is yesterday I had a meeting with the IJCR, International Journal of Clinical Research. We've been talking with them for the last couple of months, and they proposed to us kind of a partnership schema, and they're very excited. They have a point system essentially they have an educational coursework for medical students to learn how to do research. And they have a point system behind that, and they'd like to integrate RSC as kind of a claim on the point system. And in return, they would essentially like to shunt a lot of their user base over to ResearchHub, which is, I think, really cool. So we get a lot of exposure. We get a lot of clinicians coming in. More people on the website means more people using the bounties. Maybe people have regular, I mean, how many times have you tried to ask, I bet you a bunch of people have asked Malik, random medical questions, friends and family and things like that. And imagine if we're kind of the marketplace where you can use a bounty and ask a question and there's a clinician on the other end to give you your answer you want. And on the other side of things, you have a clinician asking researchers, hey, can you help me do the statistical analysis on this patient data set that I have here? So, anyway, that's how we're kind of thinking about it and what each user or what each party gets. But I'm interested to hear first what you guys' perspective on that is, and then second, if there's any other ways that we can quote unquote establish a partnership with journals where it's mutually beneficial. I will start with Edwin.
I love this idea, and I actually think it could be a part of what we use some of our Gitcoin funding to do, to establish more partnerships or more journals. I think it could be really functional. I think we could potentially even get more editors from these journals that will be way more clearly subject matter experts, for the fields that we may need. But I think establishing partnerships with, maybe more than one journal would be an excellent way for us to use our resources, for us to generate demand for ResearchCoin.
Agree, and I think it's important too to identify journals that are very much aligned with our mission. So this journal is a no AP, completely open access. So they're very passionate about kind of open accessing all of their publications and then also educational coursework for their students. So agree with you, and I think it's something that we can definitely. And then again, governance proposals, of course, will go out to make sure the community is aligned with everything.
So if we go with a journal that's not open access, though, I mean, is that a non-starter, or do we want to think about the implications of that? You know what I mean?
I think maybe for another time we can consider a non-open access, but I think that it makes. I personally would be kind of opposed to not having or to having that. I'd rather have an open access. I think that is the mission of ResearchHub, So, but we can talk. Yeah, Kobe.
Yeah, I love this idea, but wanted to get a little bit more clarification. So, from a service provider perspective, who is? I guess there is two parties here, right? There is the person asking a question or seeking some kind of advice. Are they scientists? Are they average people? Who are they exactly?
Yeah, so they're usually medical students or early residents, at least from IJCR. That's who their user base is. And what they do actually is they go through this extensive coursework that they have, and they learn to do research. But some of them have problems doing statistical analysis and things like that. So that medical student or early resident, first year resident can ask researchers on ResearchHub, hey, can you help me do this with my data? And then a regular layman person or even a scientific researcher who doesn't have experience in the clinic or with anything kind of clinical, they can ask the medical doctor that's now on ResearchHub through this partnership, hey, you know, my son has this condition, or they have a, you know, a red toe, is it COVID toe, you know, something like that.
Yeah, I like this idea a lot. Why does that exist? Like, are there any products that do something like this? I'm very curious. Like, it seems like a good idea, generally speaking.
I feel like I'm gonna shove this over to Patrick or Malik. I feel like you guys know a lot of like kind of adjacent websites.
Yeah, and you guys can share in the thing. You know, I don't want to take too much of your time. That's just a good idea.
There was a website that started maybe like 10 years ago that did like crowdsourced like weird case. Basically, like, here's some weird case that my physician can't figure out. Like, all the doctors out there in the world, can someone tell me what's going on? And they actually did pretty well. I don't think it like super took off, but I know they like did an exit for like a decent amount. So I can look more into it and let you know. But yeah, people have had success with that in the past.
And the person, yeah, thanks for sharing, Joyce. And the person who is actually answering the bounty or the question or the solicitation, is that like one person, or is that going to be, in your mind, Jeff, like a crowd-sourced thing?
I think the answer would probably be just to one person. And then again, we have like the hub-specific reputations that can help out there. And then you can click on their profile and look at their credentials and make sure that they're qualified to be answering that. Like, they're board certified cardiologists, so they can answer my cardiology question or something like that. Yeah, I think Malik probably has some input here, I'm sure.
Yeah, just a couple small thoughts. So yeah, similar to what Patrick just mentioned in the text, there is like for dermatology, we have AAD clinical community where you can ask a doctor a question, but it's only dermatology specific. And then there are several forums where they call digital grand rounds, where if there is a tough case, you can just put the pictures and stuff and people can answer. One benefit that we at ResearchHub can have is this journal in particular, you know, it's like most are med students, some are early residents. So it's a wide variety of doctors you can get. So you can pretty much ask any question, like of any specialty. And while we're on this about the journal partnership, I was just wondering if we can revisit, like, you know, our earlier talks about peer review, or if they want pre-publication peer review, then I think that's somewhere where, you know, all the researchers from ResearchHub can help them too.
100%. I was thinking about this as well. And I know, Kobe, you had some mock-up of it, but it was like kind of a bounty for requesting a peer review. And I think that could be a cool place and a cool situation for something like that.
Yeah, I think we can do something like that. We were toying with the idea of, like, you know, when you go publish, you can request a peer review, and either the community or someone is going to help you get a peer reviewer of quality in exchange for some RC. So I think these two ideas, like, also really raise the value of RC. So, like, I would, you know, I personally would buy RC if these two things existed.
Can you repeat that a little bit? I'm sorry, I didn't completely get it.
About which part? The requesting the peer review?
How the two work together?
The two organizations, like us and the journal?
No, how these two things give more value to RSC.
Oh, this is for Kobe.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, I guess the idea is that basically, from what I'm understanding, at least, like, speculating in my head, people would be asking for some, either a question or for like help with statistical analysis or some obscure medical advice and stuff like that. And, you know, I don't think that should be for free, right? There could be a bounty associated with that. And, you know, if we only focus on bounty in the form of RSC, like, you can't, you know, throw US dollars, you can only throw RSC, then that gives RSC a little bit more value, more of a reason for people to buy it. At least like in my head, it makes sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of touch points here where it's like med to med. So a med student can ask a resident year one something they need help with, or they can ask a first year med student can ask a fourth year med student something they need help with, or an attending can ask and say, hey, this case is, I don't know what's going on. Can I get a second and third opinion from other, attendings? So, and then you can also have the med to researcher, which is the researcher helps them with some of the statistical analysis. You can have the researcher layman to the med, asking them for clinical advice and things like that. And I think there's a lot of touch points that way.
I think the best thing is to focus on like the starting point is like the I don't know, because sorry guys, had a cold recently. And this isn't saying there isn't value for like med to med, a med to researcher. We just know that like PhD students and like postdocs are not going to have a lot of money, right? So if we're thinking about where to start the cycle, we need to think about like the parties who actually have the capital and have to inject it into that wheel so that everybody else can, share that value. That makes any sense.
Totally. Yep. And that might come from the layman's person trying to enter in.
Yep.
Just to throw one comment on that, because I had talked about it, or at least thought about it quite a bit. I think one thing that's underrated is that researchers are willing to pay an APC. It doesn't have to be $3,000. It's just that the difficulty is when that APC doesn't go back to researchers. It's when it gets sapped away to publishers. That's really the big issue. So if we could find some kind of niche where we provide a service, whether it be peer review, like, people contract reviewers or editors from ResearchHub out to journals that are willing to pay their reviewers, then you can start to sap away some of that APC back to researchers because it's paid to other editors who are researchers. And I think that's how you kind of start the flow of money in my mind, at least easily.
And if researchers value that can be part of our value proposition.
Yeah, I think really hitting home on like keeping researchers in the loop of money and not letting it leak out of the system would really, at least to me, that's important.
Yeah.
Maybe if we facilitate the communication on the platform, either through DMs or a more informal way, a lot of collaborations could emerge. I mean, not to force something from ResearchHub, but to be made by users, or more partnerships between users.
Yeah, we thought a little bit about building some kind of DM feature for the bounties for Metastudy, just because that would be similar to like how like Upwork and other freelancing websites kind of do things. They allow for some kind of like minimal conversation between the freelancer and the person paying the bill beforehand. So it's definitely like something we're thinking about, but not 100% sure that'll be included in the V1. Okay, cool. Yeah, so we're at about an hour now. Any last minute thoughts, questions for this week coming up? Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for attending. And we'll have some designs, I think, for this Metastudy feature coming up by the end of the week. So we'll post them in the general channel for everybody to share feedback.
Cool.
See y'all.